Swagger on point when I step in. Signs in the air for the gang that you're repping. Don't get brave when I'm stepping in the rave. If you show man love, everything's okay. So looking for a lively rave to have fun in. If there ain't girls in the place, we ain't coming. Middle finger up to the Jake, stepping in with the gang. Please tell the police they can't come in. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. Sign if you're down for the gang.
Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend. We be busting the clubs, cause you know that we can. Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend. Still rocking the show, still feeling the flow.
Welcome back, Juventinita, to the Juventinita Back to Black and White podcast. I'm Daniel Negro, obviously live from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, as usual. And today we're on a roll. This is going to be probably the fourth podcast in about 2 days, episode number 15. So we just keep moving down the line. Obviously, we're going to talk about today's great win against Genoa, and we're going to cover it, comprehensively like we usually do. Obviously, I've brought another guest, another, I would say, first timer. I don't want to call him new because I don't want to offend anyone, but first timer, obviously, to a podcast. Before I get into that, as always, please subscribe. It's we're slowly moving up, guys. Hopefully we can get up to 100, maybe, in the next couple months. That is going to help me immensely. Obviously, drop a like and drop some comments. Don't be shy. Questions, comments, concerns, whatever. If you think my camera's not in the right position, just let me know, man. Like it's just to make this as good of an experience as I can for you guys. Obviously with the constraints of work that I have, but again, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, those are the main kind of platforms that I'm using for more audio. Again, subscribe, keep up to date. Obviously, if you follow my Twitter, you'll have the links as soon as they drop. And without further ado, I'd like to bring on, we're going to have a double dose of Daniel on this podcast, double Ds. So, welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for having me, buddy. We got D squared tonight.
It's going to be weird because you're going to be like, hey, Daniel, how's it going? And I'm going to be like, oh, shit, wait, what the hell's going on? But, you don't hear that too often. But anyways, so let's tell everyone where you're from and get into the kind of usual particulars of the beginning of the podcast. So, where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm based in Toronto, Canada. Yeah, been here, born and raised. Big Leafs fan, off the record. But
oh God, okay, we got to cut the podcast, guys.
But
you never told me. You never told me that before we started. So now we gotta. Sorry, we gotta cut that one.
Sometimes I can't tell anyone because they're always never too good, But
well, it's okay. I'm a Bruins fan, so we've been dominating you.
No, I can't even talk, man. Yeah.
Al, have a nice one, Al. But anyways, let's. How about your heritage? Obviously, you're of Italian heritage. Or whereabouts in Italy is your family from?
Both of my parents are from Italy. Yeah, my dad's from Abruzzo, a little town in Abruzzo. My mom's from Puglia, more towards the mountains there. So neither one are actually from Torino, but through cousins and starting at a young age, I became a Juve fan, and I've stuck with it ever since.
Okay, so like you said, how you became a Juve fan. Kind of again, for obviously newer participants or new guests to the show. It's been a tradition, obviously started by Al, and I've really liked it. So I'm gonna steal his thunder and tell us how you became a Juve fan.
Yeah, so I was 10, maybe even younger, and my dad came home with the classic black and white striped Juve jersey with the fast web sponsorship on it, the classic, and that was my first one, and I've had one practically ever since. And I grew up supporting the team, and even though they give me nervous, every time I watch them. I was stuck with it, and it's been some good memories ever since. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Juve has been a healthy provider of panic attacks,
Exactly.
high blood pressure, stress. But it's for the love of it, right?
Yeah, we stick it out.
How Yeah, exactly. Kind of again what I touch on with some other people that have obviously are more regulars on different platforms and different shows and podcasts. Kind of the era that you were coming from obviously would have been, I would assume, the 90s or early 2000s or
Yeah, so late 90s, early 2000s, a little bit of Del Piero, Cannavaro towards the end. Um, but even, the older I got, the more into it I got. So a big Marquisio fan, Zambrotta as well. Actually, even, before 2006, before the World Cup, Buffon, obviously. I wasn't, I know this might sound a little biased, but I wasn't a big Zidane fan, even before 2006. But yeah, I tried to stick with, try to have a couple favorite Italian players just to kind of stick with the heritage and the team.
right.
Yeah.
And what about family? Any family rivalries or how do you usually watch your games as well? Just kind of, do you like to watch them by yourself? That's kind of my preference. I'm not a big unless it's kind of a national team, like an Italian national team where we're playing in a World Cup or Euro. Then maybe I'll get together with some friends and family, but for the most part, I like to stay in my house by myself, locked, doors locked. But
That's exactly me. I can't watch it with anyone else, especially when it's even the non-important games. If it's 0-0, I'm on the edge of my seat trying to get someone to
yeah,
score from yelling at the TV.
trying to will it. Yeah.
Exactly. But my uncle is actually a Milan fan, AC Milan, and he can't really talk.
God
He
rest
can't
his
really
soul.
chirp too much. Yeah, so it's been pretty good for the past few years. So hopefully we keep up the domination over them, and I don't have to hear them complain. So that's good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And again, everybody's got these rivalries, these different family stories. I sent a message to one of my, I'll call him a cousin. I'll call him a cousin. It's a little bit confusing the line how to go, but obviously their family relations obviously closer to my mom, but so I'm not sure how we'll call him a cousin. Anyways, I sent him a DM about obviously they're Lazio fans, and
Mm.
he's like, "Oh, there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing Lazio," and I'm like, "Okay, it's on, it's on. We'll see. July 20th is still coming up. It's still
Yeah,
coming. So
big.
it's definitely nice to hear about all these different stories. With I don't know if you watched if you listen to all Juve cast, but one of his guests actually took his brother's Milan jersey and threw it in the garbage live. So that was pretty funny. So, but just great moments like this, and it's always fun to have a chat. So let's get right
Sure.
into it because there's, this is a pretty important month, June. Obviously, not just because of obviously restarting, not because now coronavirus is kind of, I mean, it looks like it's subsiding in Europe at least. And I think in Canada too, there's a little bit of an increase, but nothing crazy like the US right now.
Hmm.
But June is kind of the month where you rectify your financials. And Juve was not in a good position. I know we had quite a few losses. Obviously, the number it wasn't determined because they don't reveal that kind of stuff until they put the financial statement out, and then we still don't. So it's all speculation of what the net loss of what we actually had. About some people are saying 120, 150 million euros. So
Hmm.
quite a bit of room to make up. But let's get into kind of the biggest name right off the bat. I kind of fudged up a little bit of the numbers. So Arthur Melo,
Hmm.
obviously we picked him up. We pay 72 million euros plus 10 million in variables, kind of bonuses. Again, those are, I'm not sure how those are structured, but there's definitely room to make 10 million extra on Barcelona side. Then for Pjanic, we sold him for 60 million euros plus a 5 million bonus variable. So, interesting deal. I thought it was going to be a little bit higher, the difference between the numbers, but it is what it is. We're still getting that big plusvalenza that we need, and it's just going to be interesting because obviously today is going to be the last day, to make sure, and obviously we've hit this record number of outgoing or obviously of revenue coming in, but let's just get into what your thoughts on this deal is. What do you think of the player? Obviously, for me, I've never really seen him play live, so I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I've heard he's really good tactic, in terms of skill wise. But what do you think about the Artur Melo Pjanic swap?
Yeah, I've seen him, not a couple of times, and not even like a full match. I think it was off the bench once or twice, and he looked good. He's definitely a lot more mobile than what we're used to in the midfield now. Definitely a lot more tactically and skill gifted compared to the likes of Khedira and Matuidi, which is pretty easy given their age and what they're at. But I think Pjanic has given quite a lot to us for the past few years. It's unfortunate to see him go, but he's pushing 30 now. How many more years does he have left to play at a top level? So I think it's a good move for the future. Hopefully it can make an impact starting next season. I think it also depends what other moves they make this summer, but I'm rather optimistic about him. And if he's like everyone else, if he stays healthy, he gets consistent playing minutes, and who knows, with the likes of Ronaldo there and Dybala, maybe it could help his game. Maybe he needed a change of scenery to try something new, and hopefully it works out well. So I'm feeling good. I feel the price range was maybe a little high, just because he hasn't really proven himself at Barca. So you're kind of paying for someone that hasn't really, gone above and beyond what they were expecting. And at the end of the day, yeah, you're paying a little more, but you're getting someone who's 6-7 years younger than a declining Pjanic. So I think it's a move in the right direction, anyways.
Yeah, I think, in terms of the price, I think that was predetermined. I think that was a wash anyways. On the last kind of pod that me and Al kind of debated, it was more of like, which is obviously coming out as we speak. This will probably come out tomorrow. I'll try and get it out tomorrow, obviously on Canada Day. And again, actually, I forgot to say that. Happy Canada Day to my fellow Canadians and our fellow Canadians. Out there, have a good time. I know it's a Wednesday. If you're in Calgary, you're probably getting some shitty weather with me, but hopefully from coast to coast, you guys are actually getting some sunshine. And obviously, it is a weird day to have it on a Wednesday, but whatever, it is what it is. But back to the action. Yeah, I mean that it was kind of predetermined. Fees. I just thought we were going to get a little bit closer to obviously there's a 12 million gap. Wow, but it gets bigger than that, obviously, with the bonuses, and since they don't tell us how easy those are to accomplish, like it's essentially how many games he plays, whatever. Maybe if we have to win the Champions League final, who knows, right? So obviously they have a potential of 82 million where we're only looking at 65. Now, they obviously needed help, and we obviously needed the help as well because of our financial problems. So, again, it is what it is in terms of that. As long as that's getting solved, then at the end of the day, I don't mind per se. I just hope that this isn't the end, and that's really my only concern, is that really this is the only guy that they really look into, and obviously they solve our books, because we'll get into something a little later on. But just talk about kind of how I see a certain number that has been thrown out and how that affects us in the future. Anyways, Paratici was interviewed on Sky. He obviously said Pjanic was a very important player for us. When this option came up, we spoke to Miralem. He told us that he was fine with us and that the only club he would leave for was Barcelona. He goes on to say we got Arthur, who we had been following for a long time, and who is younger than Pjanic, like you mentioned. He also talks about another player that we picked up, Felix Correa, as a one-on-one winger. He has great talent, and we've been following him for some time. So for us, he's more functional than Pablo Moreno, who we shipped to the other way. And also another thing, the club has remained very close to Pirlo. Now, speaking of that, obviously, as I mentioned in my last video, Andrea Pirlo is going to be the new Juventus U23 coach. He obviously wanted to find a Serie A club to manage, but Andrea Agnelli had influence on him, and he obviously has chosen us, our youth squad, to coach. And that was reported by Tuttosport. Another kind of interesting thing, obviously, Buffon is just one appearance away from setting the all-time Serie A record for most appearances. I was hoping that it was going to be today, but obviously we'll have to wait and see when that comes down the line. I'm sure they're going to rotate at some point. I'm not sure if it'll be against Torino or against the kind of gauntlet teams, but I definitely think he'll get in. I'm thinking it'll probably be against Sassuolo.
Yeah, I think next
so.
week.
Yeah, Sassuolo, I think. And obviously, in more transfer news, again, it's been a hot topic. Obviously, being this financial period, Ferran Torres from Valencia apparently is negotiating with Juventus. Obviously, his contract ends in June of 2021. So obviously, a player who can play both wings, and obviously a young player, right? I think he's 20 years old. So yeah, kind of. What do you think of those last few points that I set up? Just to get you involved.
I think I've heard a little bit of this Ferran Torres. I haven't seen him much. Sorry, but I've heard everyone's been speaking very highly of him on Twitter, and I know we're a little short on the wings, so that could be something good for like 20, 21 years old, whatever he is.
Right.
Good for the future, and like I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter about this, that it could potentially mean with Kulevitsky also coming in, it could be the end maybe for Douglas Costa at Juve, maybe to cash in on him, try to move that money to put it towards a center forward or a right back, because we have other needs as well. I like the Pirlo signing for the U23 team. He didn't really have any experience to be a big team coach, which is probably why he maybe didn't get any offers or no offers that suited him. So I think this would be a good stepping stone for him. Maybe in the future he can take over the big team. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens this summer with the ins and outs of who's coming and going.
Yeah. Let's get into some more of that. I'll just go down a few more points and we'll see what you think. Obviously, more sources saying that Pellegrini will return to Juve. I don't believe so, but they're also evaluating obviously Emerson Palmieri of Chelsea, and while David Alaba was offered by his agents. Obviously, in the midfield, Zaniolo and Pogba, but the costs are high. Aore from Lyon and Jorginho remain options, while in attack, Milik and Jimenez are linked. In terms of Kumbula, the defender of Verona, it seems like Romeo Agresti is saying that Juve slipped away in that race. Al was telling me yesterday that he was hearing Lazio was linked with him. And then again, someone like Ferran Torres, again, this is obviously from Romeo Agresti, likes Juventus. He still hasn't extended his contract. Juve already have Kulusevski, like you said. But they would have to sell Douglas Costa and Bernardeschi But you never know. I guess we'll have to see. Then Christian Romero obviously is going to be remaining on loan. They had to do a lot of these little extensions because obviously the contracts were set to end at the end of June. So definitely that's been extended, and obviously Kulusevski's obviously been extended to stay at Parma until the end of the season. So we won't be seeing him. And I don't even know necessarily if they'd be allowed to play. I was kind of thinking about that because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, why didn't we bring back Pellegrini or why didn't we bring back someone like Romero or any of these guys?" Right? But I don't know if it's just it would be even allowed because of how it's set up, the season set up, and obviously now the games have been moved past what the season should have been ended, or well, the season should have been ended by now. So
Right.
I'm not sure how that
Yeah, I
would have
don't.
worked or if it would have been allowed or not. So
Yeah, would they be club tied to the teams you're with now? Like, I don't really know how that would work either.
So I think that's why we're hearing a lot of that. Is because of probably a stipulation saying that they can't play because we could use a lot of these players, as extra guys, right?
I was gonna say like Pellegrini would be a good help, especially with their injuries at the left. But I feel like him staying, actually for all of them staying where they are is probably the best thing for the next month or two.
Right.
Just same system. Been playing with these guys all year. Might as well just get as much playing time as you can for the rest of the year, and then make the adjust into the new season.
Yeah, so let's get into the capital gain. So this is kind of what I was saying. We'll touch on later. So it looks like Juve's made 160 million euro capital gains, which is a record. Obviously, new transfer window begins. This is obviously coming from Romeo Agresti. I don't know if that's necessarily true because I've heard that the transfer window is obviously going to get moved. So we'll see what that's all about. But yeah, the Pjanic transfer is the second highest capital gain of the Andrea Agnelli era, the third ever of all time. And yeah, 160 million euros. Now, this is kind of what I want to get into because I discussed with Albert. Obviously, you're not going to hear what he said, but I've discussed with Albert. I've discussed with Juve Club. I've talked about this with Al numerous times, various podcasts before. You look at this 160 million, right? Now, if we were obviously a net loss, that 160 million you could say probably covers us, right? Obviously, it puts us back in the positive, which is what we needed because you couldn't be over a 30 million net loss over 3 consecutive seasons. So we already, I believe, we're at 30 million. Obviously, the statement of the half financial statement, which came out at the end of December of 2019, said we were down another 50, or the net loss was 50 million. So let's just assume that's cleared up. Now, obviously, like everyone's saying, this new transfer window's coming up, whether it be immediately now, July 1st, or if it's moved, it's shifted till the end of the season, which will then extend to the new season. Are we just going to be this club now that is going to be buying players? I don't want to use the word recklessly, but I do want to use the word recklessly. And then running up a tab and then having to deal with this like every year. What do you think about that, Daniel?
I think that's kind of who Juve are at this point. They just buy. You see, how many times have we seen they buy young players and they buy, some players that maybe not even make an appearance for the team, and then they're sold a couple of years later for, to make money back or financial gain, whatever it is. But I think it depends on what they're trying to do, because obviously right now they're trying to win now. They're trying to set up, we got to win now. We have Ronaldo for the next year. We got to try to make the team better now. So if that's their goal, then they got to go out and sign players that are going to help the team now. And of course, that's not going to be cheap. But then again, like you said, it's going to hurt them, next year, the year after, so on and so forth. So they need to be. I think they can spend, and they will. They just got to spend it smartly, in the right areas. So we'll see. Like, there's even talks of getting rid of Christian Romero already. Not even playing a
Right.
game, selling him for a profit. So this summer's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think every guy that gets subbed on for Juve now is probably going. So we'll talk about Olivieri later, but he's probably gone. Muratore's gone.
Yep.
Pellegrini, I think, is going to go because he'll probably fetch a big number. Yeah, it's kind of difficult for me because I think you set a dangerous precedent because when you look at it in terms of, okay, it's fine if you do that, but the precedent is you have to win
Yep.
Champions League because you got to bring in those high revenues, right? And every time, like you look at what Juve's tried to do in the past couple of years, every time we tried to do that, we got knocked out early. So that's why then you have to get this massive fissure in the locker room of who the hell we have to send out, and so I don't know. I don't like these things. They're kind of like the new what do they have? The it's like the new co-ownership deals that they used to have in the
Yeah.
past, and I think it's like really if you're inflating, okay, if a team's willing to buy what you're, the price of something, whether it be stocks, whether it be cars, is what you're willing to pay for it, right? Just in general, right? Talking about prices, but obviously you can like shake hands, pat each other on the back, or I scratch your back, you scratch my back, and then where do we go with this? Are we selling like 14-year-olds for like 100 million because it makes sense? You know what I mean? Like,
It's a
where do you
risky game.
where do you draw the line? So that's kind of what I'm worried about with this now, kind of really opening up. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot more teams trying to do it if they have to. So, again, speaking about these players, obviously Steffi Mavididi was sold outright to Montpellier for 6.3 million. Obviously, Juventus signed Felix Correa for 10.5 million, which is going to be paid over the next financial year. Obviously, the players signed a 5-year deal. And Pablo Moreno was sold to City for 10 million, and that's usually how the swaps work, right? You're setting an amount. I just don't know why they just set it at 10. Like, this is what I don't understand. It's like, well, if that's the case, then just say, yeah, they're giving me 30 and I'm getting 60 and they're getting 60. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of, like, that's what I don't understand. But I think it's creative financials, a creative accounting, if you want to call it that. But I guess we'll have to see what happens in the future. Obviously, this transfer or this swap, whatever you want to call it, is going to be net as a positive of 7.6 million euros for obviously the plusvalenza. Net of obviously different charges that need to be paid, but 7.6 million we're getting off of that transfer. So, but anyways, yeah, that was a lot. Any final thoughts on kind of what's going on lately in the news?
I wish I knew more about this Correa guy from Man City. I heard he's supposed to be one of Portugal's top talents or young, promising talents. But they also said that about Moreno coming
Right.
from Barca or from their youth, and he's supposed to be a great scorer, blah blah blah. And then a year later he's shipped out. So like we said, they bring in these guys, and you never get to see them, so you don't ever actually know if they're going to be any good or not. So. I guess we keep our fingers crossed and hopefully he pans out, or if not, he's going to be sold anyways. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But let's get into this match already. Juve-Genoa, obviously, we started out with the 4-3-3 as kind of expected. Obviously, Tech in goal, Quadrado on the right, Mattia de Ligt, obviously Leonardo Bonucci, and Danilo on the left-hand side. Then you had Rabiot in the left mid. Obviously, your holding was Pjanic. Holding mid was Pjanic, and then you had Bentancur on the right. Obviously, up top, Ronaldo on the left, Tibal in the middle, Bernardeschi on the right-hand side, right wing side. What did you think about that lineup? What have you thought about our lineup? Obviously, using this 4-3-3.
I like that Sarri's kept a consistent three up top. I think they've started to gel and meshed over the past few games. They've scored some incredible goals. I think Bernardeschi is finally getting a little bit of his confidence back, playing in a consistent role, playing with some top talent. It's tough for a young player to come in and out of the lineup and play in different positions and try to find your groove that way. So
Right.
I've liked what I've seen from him. Bentancur has been, wonderful all season, in my opinion. He's been our best midfielder by miles. Rabiot was okay today. I didn't think he was terrible. I think he's getting a little better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not a big Danilo fan, so I can't really say like he didn't play bad today. But then again, Genoa didn't really test him or test the back line pretty much
I,
at
di-
all.
I didn't think they played particularly well. If you looking at the whole team, obviously then Genoa went in a 3-5-2 formation, which we're pretty familiar with.
Hmm.
Obviously Perin was back in goal with Genoa. Obviously they're number one now. Obviously, like you said, Christian Romero was on the right defender of the three. You
Hmm.
had Sumaro in the middle and Maziello on the left position. Then you had Giglione, Berami, Scone, who was obviously, it's funny how these English, these fucking commentators, man, it's all negative news. It's always a dig. Every game, it's either you're listening to the national team or you're listening to European and it's like, yes, let's go back to the 1932 World Cup where Italy got beat 7-0 by North Korea. It's like, dude, chill, calm. So Scone, if you didn't know, was on the Ajax team that beat us last year.
Yeah,
Just an FYI, everyone.
exactly.
And then they also had, one of the Grinta legends, Sturaro, obviously in the center mid there, and then Casata on the left as their left mid, and then obviously up top Pinamonti and Favili, obviously some former players, a lot
Hmm.
of former players in that squad, either youth or obviously the main team. But yeah, I was definitely interested to see how they were going to play this game. Kind of my thoughts before the game were, uh, I thought they were gonna. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you look at the game, it actually seemed like Genoa was not that great of it. They did not come out today. They were kind of lazy
Hmm.
in the counter, and they were sitting really deep, like real fucking deep, and I couldn't believe it because when I started looking at our wingers and our like obviously the wingers and the fullbacks, they just had mountains of space to get around there, and even then we still couldn't really produce from our fullbacks. That's
Yeah.
kind of one of my disappointments. But let's go minute by minute. I'll kind of bring up some about 25, 30 minutes at a time. I'll bring up some of the things that happened in the match, and we'll go over it. Obviously both halves. So,
Hmm.
first for the fourth minute, I thought that we had some good passing. We were looking like the link up was a lot better.
Hmm.
I thought Genoa was pressing and they were trying to counter us, uh, but they get an early yellow, and you're kind of like, okay, well, this could be interesting. Now, 6 minute yellow card. You don't usually
Yeah.
see that one. So, but Juve was kind of still clumsy. This is what I've been noticing. In these opening games, we're kind of a little bit slow, and we're allowing these other teams to press us and almost take advantage. Now, I don't think they were pressing as well as Lecce were,
Yeah.
and I think
I
obviously
agree.
Lecce gassed out. Plus, they had a red card, but they were making a little bit of a difficulty for us. But I think what was noticeable for me, at least, was the ability. Obviously, in the 10th minute, we made a nice counter. We actually countered Genoa and moved down the pitch with some great link-up passing. Let's see. Yeah, no. What was this? 12 winning. So yeah, definitely we're winning a lot of balls back, and
Hmm.
that's what I mentioned. It just didn't seem like Genoa was there at times. Their passing was sloppy, and they were definitely getting picked off quite a bit. What did you think about the first 12 minutes, kind of the game?
I was gonna say I think around roughly when that first yellow card came out, or maybe just after that, it just seems like they kind of they got deflated. They stopped pressing as much. They stopped. Some of their passes were loose. I was kind of expecting a little more from Genoa, like you said. I didn't like. I'm almost certain they're a better team than the way they actually played today, because I don't think for a solid chunk they were just pinned back. Trying to hold on the pressure. Yeah, Juve, the first 12 minutes, they didn't dominate too much, but they kind of grew into the game, I feel. They strung some passes together, they switched the ball well. They didn't turn over the ball too often as the game progressed, which is always a positive. And I thought our midfield was decent. And Genoa's was not very, not very good tackles, not very good passes. They were just kind of loose and clumsy, I felt.
Yeah. So obviously 14th minute, Matthias de Ligt was in the box. Obviously he got taken down. Well, it was off a corner. I mean, It's been happening quite a bit. To me, it's too soft. We gotta set a standard, and some of these kind of interventions in the box are, at least for me personally, a little too much. It kind of looked like his hand kind of grazed his back. I don't know.
I agree, but the thing is, they got to stay consistent with these calls, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the toughest thing.
And that's what I went over with Juve Club. I said, make it as hard as possible to get a penalty. These shouldn't be easy.
Yeah, I agree.
Because at the end of the day, it's almost like a layup to score. Yeah. I mean, okay, it's questionable. Some people say, no, it's a lot of... For the most part, it's a layup once you're at the spot.
Well, it helps when you have, top penalty takers as well, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So I think, it was the right call. I thought, it was a little soft. I think de Ligt should have kind of played through that, but now it's happened a few times, so we'll see what happens in the future. Again, something that I've noticed, just when you have the ball on the left-hand side with Ronaldo, I find he really likes to hold the ball for whatever reason. And he really overthinks. Like, I'm looking at some plays and I'm just like, just dish the ball. Stop thinking about it. And he'll do his dribbles and his step overs. One noticeable one that I'm just thinking about right now is the one to Rabiot, who was beside him. And he step overs it, and he flicks it with he kind of back heels it over, and it's like we really lost all of the opportunity that he had,
all the momentum going forward,
by you doing some stupid trick because they knew the ball was going to him as soon as you stopped. So it's like, and me and Al, we're kind of going back and forth about this, and Alexandro and his role, and to be quite frank, I don't see this need for fullbacks the way that he, I think, is perceiving that we need. If you look at all the goals we've scored, when has it ever been from a cross or even a ball put in from out wide? Now, if you're saying that we need a guy as a decoy to make a run, that's one thing. But to say that Alexandro is not, I mean, and he's injured. We'll see when he comes back, right? It's kind of tough to say, argue a point when a guy hasn't really played these last few games. But you look at these teams. Like I explained earlier, they were sitting so deep, and you could literally go around them. I don't know. They were deep and they were narrow. So that's why I was shocked. I was like, what was their coach telling them? They weren't really pressing us hard to win the ball back in counter. They were just kind of laying down and kind of backing off and just letting us do our thing. So, you look at the fullbacks, right? And they were trying to get up there, and they would make some runs and then they would sky the ball over. And I don't think we've had a chance, or I don't think there's been a contribution from the fullbacks in terms of this link-up play where we're centering the ball and someone's getting on the end of it and scoring. So I don't see it, and when I look at the left-hand side with Ronaldo, again, like I said, it's a slow, it doesn't matter who's there. A lot of people are saying, well, De Sciglio and thing, we're doing fine. Yeah, but they also let guys make runs on the defensive end. So
Right.
when you go up against a team that's actually clinical and you get buried 3, 4 goals because your fullbacks are incompetent, um, then that's when it's going to show you.
Yeah.
I hate using examples of like playing teams like, the teams where it showed exactly how it doesn't matter who was in there was obviously the Milan and Napoli Coppa Italia games. But when we've played these teams that were kind of like open or lackadaisical, I would say, kind of just laying down for defeat, like I believe Genoa did today, um, you can't really use those because the runs you're making are not really challenged.
Right. I
Like
agree.
they're just kind of they're letting us do what we want. So, and you look at the times where we've held the ball and nothing really happened. So honestly, I want to get away from that, like that Allegri ball, that fucking cross it in every game, run it down the field. I think that has no place. From what I've seen, obviously in this game, we've looked so good with our link up, so good. You see
Yeah.
the different plays. Obviously, Dybala making the run off of his first goal. Obviously, we will get there. What else were some key notes that I wrote down? Yeah, obviously gives us so much space. Um, 39th minute, Genoa had and that's another thing. They had a very good chance where they cut us wide open. Obviously, their forward was a little bit offside,
Yeah.
um, and that nullified that chance. But they definitely had some balls that cut us open. And again, it comes down to the wingers not being able to, realize where to go. And you have a guy like Cuadrado, who's obviously he's played really well for us and he's done a good job, but he's not he's a right winger. He's
That was, yeah.
not he's not a right back. Okay. So he doesn't necessarily, and again on their goal that they scored, he kind of left the guy wide open
Yeah. He got burnt.
and he got burnt, right? Even though I would say that was a total effort because, you look at how it started with Ramsey and then how Bonucci completely missed the
Yeah.
ball, and then Cuadrado eventually doesn't even touch the guy, and he walks in and scores.
It was like three mistakes, one after another, right to him. It was a
Exactly.
nice goal in the end. I'm not gonna
Oh yeah.
not gonna deny the finish. Yeah.
So we kind of get into late first half again. We'll kind of bring it back. Obviously, Dybala had I saw that he gave Ronaldo an amazing ball. Fucking, he bangs it. Obviously, Perin was on point this half. He had to make quite a few big saves. And then, as usual, Danilo steps up with another stupid foul. And
It's
just,
a given.
you think about it, you're just like, dude, chill. We can't go through this with you again. Obviously, I found at the end of the half, Genoa was kind of looking for something. But again, their quality wasn't there, and they did make a little bit of a push, but nothing really big time. And then again, Bonucci's stupid yellow right at the end of the half. I'm like, dude, why are you going into the back of some guy when he's going nowhere?
Yeah.
Just again, sometimes you shake your head. But then we go into the halftime, and I'm like, well, you'd think maybe Genoa would kind of try and open it up a little bit and not sit so deep and press a little, maybe take a couple more chances. But second half, same thing, man.
I think they were even worse in the second.
Oh yeah, it was horrendous. Obviously 49th minute, I believe Cuadrado had the ball on the right hand side, laid out it off to Dybala, and he just makes magic, dribbles through about 3-4 players, and just slots it home.
He made it look so easy too.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously there was some talk about if Perin could have saved him, but I just think it was just too good. And, give the goalie a little bit of the benefit. He did make a lot of the saves, and it is Dybala. It's not like you're talking about just a slouch going over there and just tapping one in. But
Perin saved them in the first half anyway, so
exactly.
If it wasn't that one, it would have been another one.
Yeah, and then again, just more kind of, dominance after that. It kind of started from there. And, this is kind of like when Ronaldo fans get at me, or, when I get on Ronaldo, it's because of just his behavior in general and kind of how he acts on the pitch. Now, when I see him in this goal, this banger, that he scored, I see him running at the actual defenders. Like I don't see, I don't know what got over him, but it was perfect. He picked up the ball with confidence, pure confidence, and just slammed it, just lashed it home. And I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
That was definitely surprised me. Obviously, I watched it a little bit later. I knew who scored, but yeah, no, that was crazy. And there was a lot of talk, obviously, while I was working today about what was going on during the game. But yeah, man, it was crazy. That's kind of what I want. You know,
Yeah, you
Pjanic
want to see more of that.
Pjanic got the assist on that one, and I think he had a better game. But another thing too, did you notice how high Pjanic was sitting compared to other games we've played?
Yeah,
So
I
how much
did.
closer he was? Obviously, in previous games, he was like almost at the half circle distributing the ball. Today, he was like what 2-3 meters outside the box.
For sure.
So
And I think that comes because of Genoa just sitting back and letting them, kind of sit there all game, right? If you're playing a team like Inter, who runs the same formation, you won't see Pjanic be doing that. It's like you said, Genoa kind of pretty much sat down and was ready for the defeat almost 30 minutes into the match.
So that's why I get into it with like these different players, because we've seen these teams kind of obviously we've been fortunate with the red cards and stuff like that, but that's why I get into saying, okay, guys, well let's reserve our expectations a little bit, because look at where players are and then look at the teams that we're gonna have to play.
Yep.
And we have been not necessarily perfect in the first half. I'd say today was a little bit more cohesive first half. Obviously 0-0 again, but definitely link up was a lot better. Probably the best team effort out of these stretch of games. Obviously the restart I'm talking about, but yeah, so great goal by CR7. Happy to see that. Obviously it wasn't a penalty, so again, that's something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
66 minute, Douglas Costa comes on for Bernardeschi, and I think it was an excellent substitute. Just brought on touch, pace, fire, intensity, you name it. And it's tough. There's been a lot of debate on whether he should start or not, and obviously because of his injury concerns, and obviously because what he brings to us. But he's definitely shown a lot for us, and especially in this game, especially in the last game. But yeah, what are you thinking about Douglas Costa?
I thought he played well today, and the thing with him is that he shows spurts of class, of skill, of great plays. But from what I've noticed, when he does start a match, you don't see that throughout the whole match from him. You see it, here and there, and that's the problem with him, because when you start someone like Bernardeschi over him, you're getting a good defensive effort from him as well. Someone who can play with the rest of the team, make the easy passes, make spaces for other players. Sorry, and Costa is someone who needs the ball pretty much all the time to be special, right?
Yeah.
To make a pass, to dribble around a few players. If he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't do much, in my opinion. So, along with that, and I just think he's a good weapon to have off the bench. When he's coming in 55, 60 minutes in, the defense, he's fresh. He's got quick legs. The defense is starting to tire. He can expose them with his feet, with his pace, and that could definitely be, a benefit, to change the game late on, right?
Right.
So I like him as a sub, I think.
Yeah, so then, about, what would that be, 7 minutes later, obviously Dybala keeps the ball in play and lays it off to DC, and Flash just curves it like top corner, man. And the dip on that thing, it went all the way up, and I'm surprised it still came back down, and he placed it perfectly. And I don't know if you saw Bear's tweet, but he showed a picture of Vince McMahon getting excited. Obviously, if you've seen what happened in the actual Vince McMahon moment, but he goes obviously after Dybala's goal, Ronaldo's goal, and then obviously Douglas Costa. So shout out, that was pretty hilarious out there. So But yeah, no, definitely from there, I would say it was sealed. Again, we
Yeah.
still continue to push. Obviously, just after that, Ramsey and Higuain comes on for, I believe, yeah, Ronaldo does get sent to the bench. So
Mhm.
I was quite shocked. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Actually conserving his legs, and he's played every game so far. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it took this long, but it's good to see it now. Obviously, Pjanic comes off for Ramsey, and Higuain gets some more minutes to kind of get his legs back under him. But then, yeah, like we talked about a little bit earlier, the three mistakes that led to the Genoa goal, and yeah, it was unfortunate because I would have
Mhm.
liked to have had that clean sheet. But oh well. I guess lesson learned. Hopefully, they can look back at it, and that's I see. If we're gonna let's say sell one of the two of like Bernardeschi or Douglas Costa or whatever, I definitely need to see Cuadrado going back up to the right wing. That's kind of one of my main things. He's another guy that if you pull him off the bench, he can add a lot.
Mhm.
Or if you start him, he can also add a lot. And I just don't think he's got the capabilities um, that we need for a guy to be, because he's got to bomb up the pitch all the way. He's not just going from, half and on as a right winger. He's definitely needing to put in more work. So he's
Mhm.
expending more energy. And, again, through a whole game, he's going to be burnt out, right? So definitely, guys, we need to work on that right back. I know
I
everybody's been
agree.
talking about, but we definitely need to get a new right back and someone who's solid.
Yeah.
I think would say defensively, but also can, mix it in on the attack. But definitely, unfortunate that they scored that one. Obviously, for the 83rd minute, then we get some more subs. Again, like I said, it was pretty casual after that, guys.
Mhm.
We kind of took control and we're just sitting, you know, I would say kind of wasting time. We had some plays and not, but Matuidi comes on and Olivieri comes on, the kid. And actually, I'm liking this. I'm liking seeing these guys. I don't know if this is maybe, like I said before, the signal that means they're gone, but maybe that's the silver bullet there is getting subbed on for
They're
your
getting
first appearance.
showcased before they shipped out.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously Rabiot and Dybala came off, and I want to point out Rabiot having a very good performance today. He was way more involved, way more
Yep.
attentive. Link up was way better. And 85th minute, a little bit of a scare. Ramsey just gives this wacky ball to Tech, and thankfully they were able to clear it and no harm, no foul, because that could have been interesting. 3-2. You open up the game at that point.
Mhm.
But and then 89th minute, I just saw something notable, just a great sequence between a few players. Just look, you got a real good glimpse of what Sarri wants. If you go back and check that out, definitely one of the key kind of triangulation and sadismo, if you want to call it that, happened in the 89th. And I believe Douglas Costa, now that I remember, gave a wicked ball right to Higuain, I believe it was, right at the end, and it was just I don't know what the hell. He had the sauce tonight, I guess then, which would have been tonight in Italy. But yeah, no, it was crazy. But that's it for minute by minute. So who do you think was the worst player or players? Or obviously, who needs the most improvement if you don't want to have it as a negative connotation?
That's a tough one. Um, from Juve, as much as I appreciate Cuadrado taking the responsibility to play right back, I think he's the one who obviously needs more practice and understanding of the position. That goal that went right by him was kind of unfortunate, yes, but even when he's in good positions in the offensive zone or the offensive half, and he's looking to put in a cross, and he just bombs one. It's like
Yeah.
it's not close to anyone. It just seems like an absolute waste of a chance. And it's just he's got to be better than that. I know he can be. I know he can definitely make a spot on pass, especially when you have the likes of Ronaldo in the box. If you can hit him, his chances are he's putting a header on target, right? I think that's a few things he needs to work on. He's very good with his feet. He seems to get himself out of trouble a lot, which helps. But then again, if you're playing a top opponent, like if you Champions League, Inter, Napoli, whoever it may be, they're gonna learn how Cuadrado plays, and then he's gonna be in trouble when it comes, to the defensive aspects of being a right back. So, like you said, I don't think he's the answer going forward. Sure, he's great to have, for a depth, a bench player of, for some depth. But I think that's one area we need to look at in the summer.
Yeah.
From Genoa, I think that whole back line was very disappointing, to be honest.
You didn't have to go into Genoa, but hey, that works.
Yeah, they were
More content.
To be specific, yeah, that whole back line, especially on the Dybala and Douglas Costa, all three goals really, they just gave them way too much space to have a strike on target, and it cost them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. Now, how about the best player of the game? Obviously, for me, like I said before, I think the fullbacks were the downfall for Juve. I just think they didn't really add anything. It was just going through the motions as we were putting some balls in behind their defense or putting the ball out wide. It was really useless. I mean, using them, obviously, Cuadrado was obviously the player that directly gave the ball to Dybala, so he was up there. But it was nothing that a run was producing that pass to Dybala where then he scores. So I wouldn't say that they weren't really causing any damage up the flanks at least.
Mm-hmm.
But for best player or best players, I'd have to go Dybala, Douglas Costa, Ronaldo. Just incredible performance from all of them. I think Dybala was probably man of the match again. Just because overall, generally, he's the guy. He's like I said last year, he comes on or he starts. Obviously, now he's starting. Last year he's coming on because of Numbnuts Allegri, but please find. Obviously, I didn't say this last time with Al. Please find a new team because I need you to start getting embarrassed that you didn't get a Champions League caliber team like we gave you, and you freaking cost us 2 years of shit that we had to go through, and now I want you to suffer. So, anyways, Dybala, I think man of the match. What about yourself, Daniel?
I agree with that for sure. I think he was involved, practically throughout the whole game. He was involved creating opportunities, passes. I think, and I've said this before, I think he's been Juve's best player this year. Ronaldo has come in clutch. Yes, don't get me wrong. But, you've pretty much come to expect that from Ronaldo game in and game out now. So there's some games where he's kind of fallen under the radar and hasn't done as much as we expect. So I think, especially in some of the big games, Dybala has really stepped up. So I think he's my man of the match as well.
Yeah. Let's get into player ratings then, kind of hand in hand with what we talked about. Starting off, Tech, I got to say 7 because really he had nothing to do all game, barring I think maybe one save or a couple saves if they even recorded them. Interesting. He really had he really didn't earn his money today, if you want to call it that. But anyways,
he had an easy day for sure.
So what do you give Tech? 7 as well?
Yeah, I just think that's fair.
All right, so now let's go. Obviously, the defensive line: Cuadrado, Bonucci, De Ligt, Danilo. Starting from Cuadrado, what is your rating?
I'm gonna give Cuadrado a 6, just based on his.
I agree.
His poor passes, and unfortunately, he was the last one that the ball came through on their goal, so that counts as well. It hurts them as well. De Ligt, I think he was a solid 7.5.
I agree.
Bonucci, the yellow card kind of ruined his performance a little bit, so 6.5. And Danilo, you could hardly saw him all game, so 5.5, 6 max.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you had to say. The only thing I give Bonucci a 6 because yes, one with that dumb yellow card that he should never be taking.
Yeah.
Because if that's a Champions League and he's on a card already or whatever, there's possibility where he's missing a game. That's gonna cost us, and that was just stupid to take that. And then he just completely he just biffed on that ball that came across.
Good call.
And I was like, and I mean nothing. I mean whatever, he slipped, whatever, but. Obviously we're up 3-0, but yeah, fuck, that was not good at all. So I'll give a 6. Again, he was generally pretty good the whole game, but whatever.
And again, he wasn't tested much either, like we
Right,
said.
exactly. Okay, next, Bentancur, Pjanic, Rabiot.
Bentancur, 7.5 for me. I thought he was, well involved, made the easy plays, good defensively, covered well. Pjanic, 6.5. He wasn't too bad today. I thought it was one of his better games actually since the return. He was in some decent positions, made some decent passes, but then again didn't do anything too crazy or anything unreal. And Rabiot, 6.5. He was well involved today. He was making some little runs up the left hand side with Ronaldo there. Was fine defensively. Yeah, he was.
Right.
He was. I was somewhat impressed with him today.
Yeah, for me, the three mids, I'm gonna go 6.5 each because I would say Bentancur is our standard.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say he had a hell of a performance today. He had a good performance today, Bentancur, in terms of my opinion. And all of those guys met the standard, so I would give him the same. Rabiot had a way better game. Was engaged. Added something when we needed it. Wasn't throwing random balls away for the most part. Didn't kind of seem asleep the whole while he was out there, and was kind of like I found that in the last game it just seemed like he was in autopilot the whole time. And then Pjanic, obviously, because he was able to, go play in a higher role because of, like I said, what we keep talking about, this Genoa team that just seemed to lay back. So it definitely helps when he's allowed to do that. But again, a lot of other teams, a lot of smarter teams, a lot of teams that come to win, nullify that and make us play from a lot further out. So again, 6.5 for all three of those guys. Bernardeschi, Dybala, Ronaldo. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm gonna say Bernardeschi was. I'll give him a 6.5, just because he was. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't as involved as Ronaldo and Dybala, and they, solid 9s for them because they played a hell of a game. But Bernardeschi wasn't bad either. So, yeah.
Damn, those are some high marks.
Yeah, I think today was probably the best game I've seen Ronaldo play since the return, and Dybala, his goal kind of really turned the tide. I think, he scored at a crucial moment, and then a few minutes later, Ronaldo pretty much sealed it. Once it was 2-0, it was pretty much game over after that. But his
off individual brilliance, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's really what I think makes the difference for me. I agree. Bernardeschi 6.5. Dybala, I'd give him a 9, and Ronaldo 8.5, just because, again, you give him a little bit lower, because you can't give someone a 9 and then give the man of the match 9. I mean, I guess if it's really close, but I'm not gonna do that. So, fuck it. How about Douglas Costa? I would give him. I'm gonna say he's a 7 this game, obviously because of the goal. And again, it wasn't a full game, so it's not like the body of work is a little bit smaller, but I still think was good enough when we needed him to be. And like I mentioned before, he had some pretty great passes, some pretty great link up. Obviously, a great goal, unbelievable goal. And that's my ranking for Douglas Costa.
I think a 7 is fair.
What about Ramsey?
When he came off the bench, he didn't do too much. At that point, the game was pretty much over anyway, so he didn't seem like he had his usual intensity. So I'd give him a 6. Like he
Yeah,
didn't do anything bad, he didn't do anything great, so it was kind of just an average performance, I
I
think.
agree. He didn't do as much as he was doing last game against
Yeah,
Lecce, that's for sure. And then obviously you
exactly.
had that him just getting turned by a defender, which then turns into the goal. I agree. I think Higuain, I'm gonna go the same. I'm just gonna give him a 6.
Hmm.
Nothing really out of the ordinary. Is more of just gaining some minutes, gaining some fitness, seeing the field, obviously, because we're in that opportunity. Matuidi, same thing, standard for me, 6. And Olivieri, I'm gonna give him a 6 because I think it was kind of just again getting legs,
Yeah.
debut, seeing getting some minutes for someone who obviously hasn't been on the first team at all. So it's always good to throw guys on that you're gonna sell. But anyways,
Jack up the price.
yeah. What about those three?
Yeah,
Same.
6 is more than fair. They didn't do anything much when they came on. Just kind of killed the rest of the clock and called it a day pretty much.
Right. What about Saturday? What do you rate the car coach?
I'll give him I'll give him an 8. He had the right starting 11, I think, with with what he had at his disposal. The Douglas Costa substitution was a good time and a good move for him. So I think and then after that, all the substitutions were all pretty basic and just go out and get in a run and kill the game. So I think he managed the game well, had the right starting 11, and the Douglas Costa substitution was a good one as well. So 8.
Yeah, I think right now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with it 8. He's making the right subs now. We're not saying that he's tactically needing to make like crazy changes or anything like that, or bust out a new formation or anything like that. But I think for us right now, it's pretty status quo on how it's gonna play out. But yeah, I think he's done a good job so far,
Hmm.
and it seems like for whatever reason, the players are linking up a hell of a lot better. I just wish we figured this shit out a lot earlier.
That would have been nice.
What can you do, guys? Let's go into some post-match comments. Obviously, Sarri was on the podium, as well as Bentancur was the lucky guy who got to speak. Bentancur, obviously, he was happy with he had a good game. That he had a good game. The team obviously is doing well, although they still have to improve. Um, he's very happy, and every game he's feeling better about his game and how he's playing. And obviously, the team's doing an incredible job. So just some basic, again, like I said, just basic breaking down some of the quotes that were out there. Sarri said the team did well today without conceding anything. I believe in Serie A they have a 78 to 79% win rate, and he thinks it's the highest percentage of a debut manager. I believe that was talked about. Someone brought that up on Twitter, that he had the best record out of him, Allegri, and Conte after their first seasons. So he was kind of giving it to the reporter on Sky. So he said, despite what you feel, the team is doing well and growing in a performance. I kind of take that with a grain of salt. It only takes one team to really kind of expose us in this formation,
Yeah.
and then we got to go back to the drawing board. So again, while we've been playing teams that are more open, kind of like the Lecces and the Bolognas, and attacking a lot more, obviously then getting in situations where we can outplay them.
Hmm.
Link-up play is obviously and obviously individual creativity and skill is coming out, but yeah, obviously he talked about the Coppa Italia and how after the team reacted, and he really thinks it's only a physical problem now. Again, you can say the opposite of that and say, well, how are other teams doing so well? You look at Atalanta, looks like they're coming back stronger than they were before. You look at Napoli's doing really decent, I would say,
Hmm.
and it wasn't necessarily a physical problem, in my opinion. I just think that the link-up play was always a questionable part, even looking back into the first half of the season, if you want to call it that, or the first part of the season. But yeah, man, what do you think about his first comments? He talked about Pjanic a little bit, just to kind of skip on quickly. Pjanic did well. He's calm. Rabiot, obviously, positive
Yeah,
performance.
he said, yeah, he
Uh,
spoke well of Rabiot and how he's growing, which I agree. I think he's definitely gotten a lot better the past few games from after the break. Because before the break, he was, like you said, he didn't look interested, didn't look like he wanted to play, didn't know what he was doing. So I think he's getting a little more involved now, and he's understanding his tactics in the Serie A game a little better. But with Sarri saying, the team is growing and they've been growing and this and that, I don't know about that because, like you said, you're playing competition like Bologna and Lecce and Genoa. But what happens, when we have to come,
exactly.
Lazio's coming soon and Roma and
Milan.
Atalanta, right? So that's going to be a real challenge to see if we can actually perform like this against, better quality teams. And until then, you can't really say if the team's actually getting better or they're just playing weaker opponents. So that's going to be a real test.
Yep, exactly. I agree 100%. And one last little tidbit of what he was saying. He was about to replace Dybala. Shocker, everybody. Shocker. And then they scored the third, so he subbed Cristiano because he had more minutes in his legs. I don't know what it is with this fucking guy. Anyways, we won't go too much further than that.
Well, surprisingly, Ronaldo didn't seem too upset to get taken off, so that's a good thing. But
Miracles, guys, miracles.
I don't know.
Anyways, Juve Torino next at the J Stadium. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a different time for everybody. Obviously, 8:15 a.m. Pacific, 11:15 Eastern time, and obviously 9:15 if you're lucky enough to be in the mountain region. Derby della Mole, obviously big rivalry, big games. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter what the positions are. Obviously, sometimes we've steamrolled the shit out of them, even though we're in tough times. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting. They have a lot to prove as well.
Mm-hmm.
They lost just a close one, obviously, today to Lazio. And I think there's going to be a big motivation for them. They're kind of sitting lower mid-table. But I think, as is every derby in Italy or in the world, it's a big moment for both teams. Even if you're not doing so well, one win against your rival can really spark a turnaround or spark a good moment for your club, right? You have something over your rivals, even if you're not necessarily on the same level. So, again, I think for us, it's going to be another big test. I think we're gonna have to wait and see on how Torino is gonna really match what we have. I believe we're gonna probably play the same formation, maybe tweak the midfield a little bit, depending on if Sarri wants rotation or not. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if it was the same lineup, barring any news coming out of someone getting a knock or something like that. Possible Buffon plays. Maybe. I'm not 100%. Like I said, I think he's more likely probably to come on against Sassuolo.
Yeah,
But yeah, what do you think about this game coming up, Daniel?
I don't think it's gonna be a walk in the park like they think. Torino's a decently talented team. Having someone like Bellotti is definitely a top striker in the league. So keep your eye on him. The atmosphere, even though there's no fans, I'm sure that everyone's going to want to win. It's a derby just because there's no fans. It's still bragging rights and whatever else. So I agree with you. I think that the formation and the lineup starting 11 will be pretty much the same unless he wants to play Matuidi above Rabiot. That's one of the possibilities I could see. And but yeah, I think if we play like we did today, even though the competition's a little better, I think if we play the similar way, get the ball moving quickly, we should be able to pull out a favorable result. So
Yeah, no, and let's see. Let's leave it all out there. I mean, I think it's kind of too bad there's no fans.
yeah,
Obviously in these moments, it would be nice to see, and who knows? Maybe we get to a place at the end of all this, kind of towards August or maybe end of July, where some fans are allowed to go back in, um, and celebrate at least. Obviously, hoping for the ninth Scudetto, but give some. I think you give a lot. Obviously we've had these games, and I think it's done a lot for people. They've been able to take their mind off a lot of things, and obviously some stuff that's already happened, right? Obviously, people having relatives pass away by the tens of thousands, obviously
hmm
in Italy. We've been a little bit luckier over here, in Canada at least. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a big game, and I can't wait for it. I don't work on Saturday, so I'm so happy to watch this game live. Watch, I have to work overtime. I just jinxed it. I forgot to knock on wood. But no, we'll definitely have obviously a preview coming up, and then obviously again a post match as usual. And let's get into before we get into the sentimental, nostalgic part of the show. Let's finish off with these questions that we were given. One obviously was from Iskander Juve Shaw. He said, "Should we start Costa, or is it better to play him in the last 65 minutes or so?" What's your take, Daniel?
I touched on this a little earlier, and I it's not that I wouldn't want to see Costas try as a starter because I feel like he could be influential there as well. But I think you have a really good thing going with him coming off the bench at 60 whatever 65 minutes whatever it is, and just being able to put pressure on a tiring defense. With his
Right.
feet, with his dribbling, with his pace. And I like him. I prefer him as a super sub as of right now. Maybe if there's an injury up top and you try him as a starter, maybe that'll change my mind. But I think right now, like we said, if it's not broke, don't change anything.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Just for that fact, I would keep it the same as of right now. Obviously, it's going to depend all on Bernardeschi, what he's up to, right? If he's up for playing good football games, then football matches, excuse me, then yeah, we'll keep him in. If not, yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, there might be again some rotation down the line. Who knows about what? Again, like you said, with injuries or fatigue or a knock here or there or yellow card accumulation, stuff like that. We'll have to wait and see how that affects us. But yeah, no, for right now, I wouldn't change a thing. It seems to be working as of late. Let's keep it and see and build from there in the future.
hmm
Next question from Calcio Fan Blogs. Thank you guys. Does Bernardeschi have more chemistry with CR7 and Dybala, or does Costa have obviously a better chemistry with those two from what you've seen?
Ooh, I'm gonna say
Tough
yes.
question.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Bernardeschi does have a little more chemistry, only because he's a type of player that doesn't need the ball constantly. He can give it up or put in a good ball to Dybala or Ronaldo, give it up to them, give a 1-2, make a run. Whereas Costa is more a person like someone
Needs the
who needs the
ball.
ball. Yeah, exactly. He needs the ball with him. He needs to be creative, to do something, to beat a man. He won't make the similar runs without the ball like Bernardeschi will, I find, and I think a little more defensively, Bernardeschi's a better cover for the other two, especially Ronaldo's not a stellar defensive player, so I feel like Bernardeschi covers them a little bit that way. Yeah, I like the way the three have played so far, so I'm gonna say Bernardeschi. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree because I mean it's definitely been a small sample size, obviously with this
hmm
4-3-3, and I kind of again look back to the games where Douglas Costa was starting with those two, and again we've definitely were lacking now. That's that's kind of tough to say, and that's why I take the stance. I mean, you could say Alexandra was the same way in the first half of the season, and that's fine. But just looking at it, I think now in general, it's a little bit. We kind of have to look at what we've seen so far, and unfortunately, those two games where Douglas Costa was, those few games where Douglas Costa was starting, the whole team didn't look great at all. Anyway, so can you say that that was the link? Maybe that's what was the reason, possibly. I don't think. I'm a little reserved in my judgment in terms of saying that, because I think it was just colossally just garbage efforts when you look at the link up between all the players, not necessarily just Costa and the other two that we mentioned. Last one from Michael in the WhatsApp group. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Sell Douglas Costa or Bernardeschi or both or keep both.
I think it depends if they decide to bring in a winger or not. Like if they decide to bring in Ferran Torres, I think
Or
at this
Kulusevski.
yes, or Kulusevski. I think you would need to get rid of one of them. And my guess would be your return on Douglas Costa would probably be better than what you can get on Bernardeschi. So I would say Costa.
Yeah, it's a tough question because again, you got to look at it a whole bunch of ways, right? Obviously, Bernardeschi's probably going to be a guy that's going to be moved more of in the peninsula to a team that's maybe either high mid-table or mid-table, you could say, probably to get a fresh start. Or maybe even a team like Napoli could look into him if we're looking at Milik. Again, it's all circumstantial, right? Who we're looking to pick up in the transfer window, because I think for now they're both staying till the end of the season. At that point, then there's a lot of questions in general, because what direction we think we're moving, how hard are we pushing to get a fullback? Are we going to keep the club like we've done before and say it's okay just picking up Arthur? These are questions that need to be answered. For me, Douglas Costa, I'm not sure, because I'm sure his injuries scare a lot of teams, right? So I don't know. And then it's all based on the players. It's a really tough question because we're all kind of all of fans over the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, wherever. We all don't necessarily know the direction that Paratici. We can speculate to what we think he's going to go and do next, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is what I always say with until they do the announcement and the contract signed. Really, it's anybody's clue of to what direction, because we don't know what's going to come up and who wants to go and who doesn't want to go. You know, there's a long couple months ahead of us, right? So,
Well, just to add on to that, I think with Bernardeschi and even Kulusevski for that matter, the both of them they're a little more versatile than Douglas Costa is when it comes to position wise.
Right.
Yeah, they can move around a little bit. You know, could play a little deeper in the midfield or on the other wing, whereas Costa's pretty much an out and out winger. And like you said, you know, he's collected a lot of injuries. So how many chances are you going to give this guy before you deem him just an injured player? So that's something you got to consider as well.
Yep. No, definitely. And I think I think it's been a pretty good pod so far. So what any topics do you want to bring up? Is there anything kind of things you want to throw in before we get into, like I said, the nostalgic the memory lane moments of the podcast?
The only thing that I saw today that made me a little upset was Hakimi going to Inter. I thought, we needed a fullback, a right-sided fullback. I know he's right with Dortmund. He's playing more of a wing-back position, but young, talented, fast, like what that would have been a pretty good signing for, to fill one of our holes. But maybe they have a different plan that I don't know about. I'm hoping so. So, but when one of your top rivals is just getting, signing top players and getting better for next season, it's got to make you worry a little bit, right? So
yeah,
I guess
exactly.
we'll see.
And I'm just making sure to get this podcast out there. But yeah, guys, definitely check it out with Al. We definitely talked about Paratici and Marotta and I think again, I mean, Al's not worried. I'm not necessarily worried either about Merda, but because I definitely think we have the cards are definitely in our hands. But sometimes I find we like to piss that away. So definitely, there needs to be some changes, and definitely just to say as we speak right now, the tweet is going out. We got it, so I'm just doing it right now while we're talking. But yeah, everything's set up for that one, so definitely check it out. Tomorrow, I'm definitely going to be putting up obviously our podcast that we're talking about right now. Kind of wanted to give it a little bit of separation. Uh, let it breathe a little bit. Because I found the last few ones that they're right on top of each other, so I don't expect everybody, especially when the game is going to be coming up the next day, and everybody's obviously in their different time zones, right? So it's tough for people to
Hmm.
obviously enjoy. But yeah, guys, definitely check that one out. It's not too long, and it's just two guys that you know, debating on different things and how we feel. So nothing. And again, comment on what you think of those opinions. Am I talking out of my ass like probably a lot of you think now? But no, but seriously, yeah. It's just let me know. Leave me a comment on that. But getting back to this one, let's hear some of your Juve memorable moments. Obviously, you've told me you haven't been to the J Stadium, so again, I wish you luck and hope for you a quick turnaround on when you can go see Juve live, because it's
Well,
definitely again a hell of an
it's
experience.
it's unfortunate because the plan was to go this summer to catch a Euro and then possibly stay out long enough to catch, the beginning of the season, but that got ruined,
I hear it all.
unfortunately.
I've heard that I don't know how many times now, but
Yeah.
anyways, I feel bad
Um,
for all you guys.
one of my best moments was quite a few years ago, anyways. Juve and came to Toronto at the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play, and they played a Fiorentina in a friendly, like a preseason friendly. Like obviously most of the big names didn't play. It was just it was good to see some decent young talent.
Right.
And then later in the second half, Del Piero came on, so I got to watch him live for a little while, and that was it was always growing up as a he was always an icon, a legend to me, one of my favorite players growing up, and it was just great to see him, live, right there, and I'll definitely won't forget that, and
Okay,
his
I don't feel so bad about you not going to see Juve now. You got to see Del Piero, so whatever.
kind of makes up for it, right? And his performance at the Bernabeu in the Champions League, his 2-goal performance in that game, that's a classic. That's a classic game for sure. That's a good one.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that was like one of the defining, like really stands out for me as well.
Mm.
Um, because again, I found it was really when you're looking at all these games, and there's so many games in the back of my head. Obviously, games in Europa League when we're struggling just after we come back from Serie B. You look at obviously we played Man City. We played I remember Shamrock Rovers in a snowy pitch with an orange ball. It's lots of memories, man. So but that one definitely to
Yeah.
me in Champions League, obviously in the if you want to say 2000 to 2010. Yeah, those two legs were incredible. Obviously, you throw in the Champions League final,
Mhm.
but yeah, definitely some huge moments, and that was kind of really defining, especially from where we were, uh, you know, at that point, and
Yeah.
still being able to put in that performance. And you look at the I talk about this all the time with the different Juve fans when we bring up that game. You look at the lineup and you just sit back and smile, and you're just like, "Ow,
Yeah.
ow."
What happened? Yeah. How?
But that's what I like. That's when I see a team that can really, when you play as a team,
Yeah.
and you're on the same level, and you guys know exactly where you need to go, and you know exactly what you have to do, and you know exactly how you're going to be successful and what role you're going to provide to the team so that we can get the win. I think that's just as good, if not better, than talent majority of the time, because a good plan, a good and then being able to execute just as good or better. And that time it showed it was better because that Real Madrid team was stacked, man,
Yeah.
and really just made them look like fools in their own field and in their own stadium, and just in general that year, because sure, I guess that year wasn't necessarily memorable so much after that, but still, I think it's huge in terms of showing what perseverance, showing what
Yeah.
a team,
Hard work.
loyalty, hard work, all that shit, right? So yeah, no, awesome moments. Anything else that sticks out in your mind?
One of the more recent ones would be the 2-1 victory over Tottenham in the Champions League. The Dybala and Higuain goals to lift them over, and then the post match conference of Chiellini saying how
It's the
Tottenham
history.
always, yeah, they're always a bunch of chokes. So that was a classic. I thought that was funny. Yeah, you could go through memories,
Oh
forever.
yeah.
But
Oh, that's what I mean, and that's why I like this segment, because if someone necessarily hasn't been to the stadium or hasn't been to Torino or whatever, maybe they went to Del Alpi, or maybe they've seen a game in the U.S. or in Asia, or where in the Middle East, maybe they picked they were able to go see a Super Copa game or something. All of that is cool to hear, because, or even like I said, bringing up memories, because it's just brings us of the old times. I find, again, today, obviously, there's a lot of corporatization, branding,
mhm,
and we've gotten a little bit away from kind of what we stand for, but at a cost. There's pros, there's cons to that. Obviously, there's goals that we're looking to achieve, and this is kind of the route that a lot of teams obviously have to go.
yeah,
And obviously, to help us, being Juventus being behind, the big boys, with the massive revenue and fan bases around the world. So, yeah, no, I love it. I really love talking about Juve. Even if it's something to little. For me, in that game where I was in particular, I was up north in Alberta, in a I want to say it's a natural gas site, and we had just a couple things to do left, and we kind of went on a little bit of a walk. I believe it was like a couple kilometers, so we had to go away from the truck. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I had enough bars, and I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna probably pay through my ass. But I just I put on my LTE. I put the UEFA, obviously, because it was in English. I think they were spaced out enough that they were showing each game individually at that point. But put the UEFA app on, put the radio on, and we were just listening to it for from exactly, I believe it was from the 60th minute on, and yeah, that was probably a pretty big bill, but whatever, it was worth it. I guess it's kind of sucked after that when we played Real, but
yeah.
whatever. You
Well,
know,
the small
for
things,
the
right?
memory. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You got to take the small things, the small things. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for
Um,
having me, Dan.
Again, we'll have you on in the future. I guarantee it, because there's so many people that are wanting to come on, and it's tough, because what'll happen is I'll get a lull, and then I'll reach out, and then I'll get like 5 to 10 people being like, hey, okay, when can you schedule me in? And I'm like, well, shit, I just scheduled everyone in the past like 10 minutes, and now I have this excess. So, guys, if I don't get you in now, we will definitely work something out. I know it's tough with time zones and stuff like that, but we will definitely work it out. And again, like I've been saying, there's plenty of games, even beyond what's going to happen this season. We're kicking off right into the next season, so plenty of time to have you on. And actually, a question for you guys out there. Do you want to see multiple guests at a time? I know I've been questioned. Obviously, we've had a couple where we were going to have a few, and obviously some didn't pan out and a couple did. But how did you guys like the one-on-one? Do you guys want a couple, obviously, some more opinions, obviously, at the same time? They might go on a little bit longer because obviously you got to cover, or maybe we'll talk about, certain topics specifically so that it's not as, it's a little bit more condensed for you. But yeah, let me know because I definitely was asked today if someone could join, obviously, what we're doing tonight. And I think just because of the timing, it wasn't necessarily going to work. Obviously, thank you for staying up because I had to watch the game, obviously, after work, like I've said. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys when you do me a solid and you stay up, obviously, during certain hours. And don't worry, Albert, I will definitely get back get you back on. We got to figure that one out. That's on the top of my list. But anyways, guys, appreciate, obviously, again, I'll say it, appreciate you coming on, Daniel. I don't want to forget, you do definitely write, you do produce content for, it was the World Football Index, if I got that correctly.
That's correct.
Check it out, guys. I love promoting other people. I just think it's the right thing to do. I don't think this is going to be my end all be all as a career per se, at least for now. But it's been a hell of a lot of fun to speak to a lot of great Juve fans, different opinions, different personalities, different stories. It's just been a lot of fun. And but again, you can follow all that and more on Juventinita, DAL, on Twitter and Instagram. Check the podcast, Juventinita, Back to Black and White podcast, obviously on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean. Yeah, just check out those links. Like I said, if you could do me a solid and subscribe to any one of those, pass the message on to any one of those, to anyone who hasn't particularly watched or, has watched, spread the word. It's always good. So, definitely helps me out in the long term. So again, guys, always stay tuned to Twitter. That's going to be kind of my number one drop for when it comes out first, and then I kind of go into the different groups and distribute the links. But yeah, definitely Twitter is going to be your best bet. So just stay tuned for that. Obviously, the next guest is going to be doing the preview, and that is going to be Juventino Drew. He's going to be coming on, so that's going to be good. And as always, fino alla fine, forza Juventus. Ciao, guys.
Thank you.